The silver disc-shaped spacecraft descended through Earth's atmosphere, causing temporary interference with satellite communications and sending the world's military forces into high alert. Commander Elizabeth Foster watched from the roof of the United Earth Defense Command headquarters as the alien vessel, nearly 500 meters across, hovered silently above the landing pad. "They're early," said General Richard Hayes, checking his watch. "The diplomatic team isn't even here, yet." Elizabeth nodded, her eyes never leaving the spacecraft. After 20 years in military service, she had seen many things, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization. "Maybe punctuality isn't universal," she replied, trying to hide her nervousness with humor. The spacecraft's underside opened, revealing a soft blue light. 3 figures descended slowly to the ground on what appeared to be a beam of light rather than a physical platform. Elizabeth straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. "Let's go meet our new neighbors," she said. The alien delegation waited as Elizabeth, General Hayes, and the hastily assembled welcome team approached. The aliens stood nearly 7 feet tall, with slender bodies covered in what looked like crystalline exoskeletons that shimmered in the sunlight. Each had 4 arms and moved with fluid grace that made them appear almost weightless. "I am Zorix, ambassador of the Altarian Confederation," the central figure announced, its voice coming through a small floating device that hovered near its mouth area. "We bring greetings from the Galactic Confederation, a union of 37 spacefaring civilizations." Elizabeth stepped forward. "Commander Elizabeth Foster, representing the United Earth Defense Command. Welcome to Earth." The alien made a gesture that might have been their equivalent of a nod, but Elizabeth noticed how its multiple eyes scanned their uniforms, their weapons, even the building behind them. There was something in that gaze, assessment, calculation, and something else she couldn't quite place. "Your world has been monitored since you began broadcasting electromagnetic signals into space," Zorix continued. "The Confederation has decided the time is appropriate to establish formal contact and extend our protection to your species." "Protection?" General Hayes asked, his voice carrying a note of concern. "The galaxy is not always a peaceful place," another alien said. This one had a slightly darker exoskeleton. "Your civilization is classified as level 2 on our development scale. Most spacefaring races are at least level 7. Elizabeth felt a chill despite the warm day. There was no mistaking the tone. It was the same one she had heard from senior officers speaking to new recruits. Condescension barely masked as guidance. "We would be interested to learn more about this classification system," she said carefully. "Of course," Zorix replied. "Though much of our technology and knowledge must be introduced gradually. Your biological and social systems would experience significant stress if exposed too quickly to advanced concepts." The meeting continued for several hours, moving from the landing pad to a conference room that had been prepared for this historic occasion. The more the aliens spoke, the clearer their attitude became. They weren't here as equals. They viewed humans as primitive curiosities, barely worth the effort of formal diplomatic relations. "We will establish a single outpost in your United Nations complex," Zorix explained, displaying a holographic image of a small structure. "Direct interaction will be minimal as we evaluate your readiness for further integration." "And what do you expect from us?" Elizabeth asked. "Nothing of significance. Your technology has little to offer the Confederation. Your cultural artifacts may be of interest to our anthropologists. We primarily require a monitoring station in this sector of space." After the aliens departed to return to their ship, promising to come back the next day with formal agreements, Elizabeth remained in the conference room, staring at the notes she had taken. "They think we're pets," General Hayes said, pouring himself a drink from a side table. "Or maybe a nature reserve." "There's something else going on," Elizabeth replied, tapping her pen against the table. "Did you notice how they kept scanning the room? How they avoided certain topics? They're hiding something." "Maybe they just think we're too stupid to understand," Hayes suggested bitterly. "No, it's more than that." Elizabeth stood up and walked to the window, looking up at the sky where the alien ship now orbited Earth. They seemed almost nervous. Thousands of miles away, Captain Noah Wright was on a very different kind of mission. His ship, the UES Pathfinder, was Earth's first attempt at an interstellar reconnaissance vessel. While not capable of leaving the solar system, it could reach the outer planets in weeks rather than years thanks to its experimental drive system. Noah floated in the cockpit, checking instrument readings as the Pathfinder passed Neptune's orbit. This mission was supposed to be routine, testing the ship's systems at the edge of the solar system. But what he was seeing on his sensors was anything but routine. "Control, are you seeing this?" he called over the secure channel. "Seeing what, Pathfinder?" came the response from Mission Control on Earth. "I'm picking up multiple large objects in the Kuiper Belt. They're not natural formations." Noah adjusted the sensors, trying to get a clearer reading. "They appear to be ships, really big ships." "Confirm that, Pathfinder. Did you say ships?" "Affirmative. I count at least 17 distinct objects, each larger than anything we've ever built. They're just waiting out there." Noah tried to send the sensor data back to Earth, but suddenly all communications went dead. The ship's systems remained functional, but he could no longer reach Mission Control. "Computer diagnostic on communications array," he ordered. "Communications array functioning normally," the computer responded. "Signal is being blocked externally." A cold feeling settled in Noah's stomach as he looked at the sensor display again. The alien ships hadn't moved, but now he was picking up a smaller craft heading directly toward him. He'd been spotted. Back on Earth, Dr. Samantha Reeves, the leading xenobiologist on the first contact team, was reviewing recordings of the meeting with the Altarians. Something about their body language bothered her. After 15 years studying animal behavior on Earth, she had developed an instinct for nonverbal cues, and everything about the aliens' movement suggested tension and fear. "They're scared of something," she muttered to herself. But what could advanced beings like them possibly fear from us? The answer would come sooner than anyone expected, and it would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. 6 months had passed since the Altarians arrived on Earth. Their promised diplomatic outpost in the United Nations building had grown into an entire complex that took up 2 city blocks. Yet, despite their constant presence, humans had learned very little about the aliens or the Galactic Confederation they represented. Lieutenant Kate Daniels stared at her computer screen, tracing patterns in satellite data that nobody else had noticed. As a military intelligence officer, she had been assigned to monitor Altarian communications, a task that seemed pointless since their technology was far beyond human understanding. But Kate had always been good at finding patterns in chaos. "There, it is again," she muttered, marking another spot on the global map. This was the 5th time in 2 weeks that a satellite had malfunctioned while passing over a remote area. The official explanation was solar flare activity, but Kate knew better. The pattern was too regular, too precise. Her phone rang. "Daniels," she answered. "It's Commander Foster. I need you in my office, now." 15 minutes later, Kate sat across from Elizabeth Foster, whose office walls were now lined with special material the Altarians had provided to block any monitoring devices. "What have you found?" Elizabeth asked without preamble. Kate placed her tablet on the desk and pulled up a world map marked with dozens of red dots. "These are all locations where we've had unexplained equipment failures, strange energy readings, or unusual atmospheric disturbances in the past 6 months. The Altarians explain each one individually as natural phenomena or human error. But look at the pattern." Elizabeth leaned forward. When connected, the dots formed a grid covering the entire planet. "It's a scanner network," Kate explained. "They're mapping something and they don't want us to know about it." Elizabeth nodded slowly. "That matches what we've heard from Captain Wright." "Wright? I thought he was still on medical leave after the Pathfinder incident." "Officially, yes. Unofficially, he's been working with a small team at the underground facility in Colorado." Elizabeth pushed a button, and her office window turned opaque. "What I'm about to tell you is known to fewer than 20 people on Earth," she explained. How Noah Wright had not only discovered the alien fleet hiding in the Kuiper Belt, but had also managed to recover a damaged piece of technology from a small scout ship before escaping back to Earth. For the past 5 months, Noah and engineer Alan Powell had been secretly reverse engineering the alien device. They made a breakthrough 3 days ago, Elizabeth said. It's some kind of data storage, and Powell figured out how to access it. Most of it is still incomprehensible, but they found star maps and tactical information. Tactical? Kate asked. As in military? The Confederation isn't what the Altarians told us. It's not a peaceful coalition of worlds. It's an empire at war with something called the Void Collective. Kate felt a chill run down her spine. And they didn't think to mention this to us? According to what Wright and Powell discovered, Earth sits at a strategic location. There's something called a hyperspace junction near our solar system. Apparently, it's a natural phenomenon that makes faster-than-light travel possible. So we're what? A gas station? Kate asked. More like a buffer zone. Or bait. Elizabeth's face was grim. The Altarians aren't protecting us. They're using our planet as a shield. Later that day, Kate drove to a secluded cabin outside the city where Noah Wright was waiting. Despite his medical leave, Noah looked healthier than when she had last seen him. His eyes were clear and focused, his movements energetic. "Lieutenant Daniels," he greeted her. "I hear you've been putting the pieces together." "Some of them," she replied. "But I still don't understand why these advanced aliens would need Earth for anything." Noah led her inside, where the cabin's rustic appearance gave way to a high-tech setup hidden beneath trapdoors and behind false walls. Alan Powell was there, a stocky man with thick glasses and hands that never seemed to stop moving. He was working on what appeared to be a mixture of human and alien technology. "Show her," Noah told Alan. Alan pressed a sequence of buttons, and a holographic display appeared above the workbench. It showed Earth, surrounded by a strange web of glowing lines. "This is what the Altarians don't want us to know about," Noah explained. "These energy lines, the Confederation calls them ley lines in their translated documents, form naturally around certain planets. Earth has one of the most complex networks they've ever discovered. And that's valuable to them?" Kate asked. "Extremely. The ley lines amplify certain types of energy, including what they use for faster-than-light communication and travel." Noah pointed to specific intersections in the network. "The Altarians have been secretly installing devices at these junctions. We think they're building some kind of planetary shield or weapon. Against this Void Collective?" Alan nodded. "The little we've translated suggests the Void is something the Confederation fears deeply. They're not organic like the Altarians, or us. They're some kind of biomechanical hybrid." Before Kate could ask more questions, a loud boom shook the cabin. They ran outside to see a streak of fire across the sky. Something large had entered the atmosphere and was falling fast. "That's not a meteor," Noah said, grabbing binoculars. "That's a ship, and it's coming down about 20 miles from here." They piled into Noah's rugged all-terrain vehicle and raced toward the crash site. By the time they arrived, the area was already glowing with an eerie purple light. The ship had crashed in a remote field, leaving a trail of burning debris. "Stay back," Noah warned, pulling out a device Alan had built. "I'm picking up radiation, but not any kind we know." They approached cautiously. The ship was clearly not Altarian. Where the Altarian vessels were sleek and crystalline, this craft was dark and seemed almost alive, with surfaces that pulsed and moved slightly like breathing. A section of the hull split open and a figure dragged itself out. It was humanoid but covered in what looked like a combination of armor and living tissue. Its movements were jerky, damaged. When it spoke, the sound seemed to come from everywhere at once, vibrating in their bones rather than their ears. "Humans," it rasped. "Listen carefully. The Confederation lies. They fear you." "Who are you?" Kate asked, stepping forward despite Noah's attempt to hold her back. "Void Collective, Scout Unit." The figure's helmet retracted, revealing a face that was part flesh, part machine. "The war comes to your world soon. The Confederation uses you as bait." "Why would they fear us?" Noah demanded. "They're centuries ahead of us technologically." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Technology is not everything. Human mind, different. You see patterns in chaos, process information unpredictably. Dangerous. The alien's body began to convulse, and parts of its armor seemed to melt into its skin. They found us because of you, it gasped. Your planet's energy signature. Primitive, but they fear what you might become. With those words, the alien's body began to dissolve, turning into a puddle of gleaming metallic liquid that seeped into the ground, leaving only the strange armor. Behind, Kate, Noah, and Alan stared at each other, the implications of what they had just heard sinking in. The game had changed completely. Earth wasn't just caught in the middle of an alien war. Humans themselves might be more important than anyone had realized. And if the dying alien was right, the real conflict was about to reach Earth. The first attack came without warning. 3 massive ships appeared suddenly in Earth's orbit, their arrival marked only by a brief flash of purple light and the immediate failure of every satellite in their vicinity. They were unlike any vessels humans had seen before, not sleek like Altarian craft, but irregular and asymmetrical, parts of their hulls seeming to pulse and shift like living tissue. Commander Elizabeth Foster was awakened at 3:17 a.m. by the emergency alarm. Within 10 minutes, she was in the command center, staring at the main screen as the strange ships positioned themselves around the planet. "Where are the Altarians?" she demanded. "Their diplomatic compound is locked down tight," General Hayes reported. "They're not responding to any communications." "So much for protection," Elizabeth muttered. "What about our defense systems? We've got missile launches from Russia, China, and our own bases, but..." Hayes paused as new information came through. His earpiece. All missiles were destroyed before they even got close to the alien vessels. The main screen flickered, and then displayed an image that made several people in the room gasp. The face was humanoid, but parts of it were clearly mechanical, metal and circuitry embedded in flesh. "People of Earth," the figure spoke, its voice oddly melodic despite its appearance. "I am Commander Krell of the Void Collective. The Confederation has deceived you. They do not protect you. They fear you." Elizabeth stepped forward. "This is Commander Foster of Earth Defense Command. Why have you entered our orbit with hostile intent?" "We come not as conquerors, but as liberators," Krell responded. "The Confederation keeps you weak because of what you might become. Your minds process chaos patterns in ways no other species can. This makes you valuable, dangerous." As they spoke, Dr. Samantha Reeves was working frantically in her lab with a small team of scientists. The Altarians had finally sent an emergency communication, not to Earth's leaders but directly to her. "They know something," Samantha told her assistant Greg Jones as they examined the data package the Altarians had sent. "Something about human biology that they've been hiding." The data showed comparisons between human brains and those of various alien species. According to the Altarian measurements, human neural pathways formed connections and patterns that were mathematically improbable, almost impossible according to their understanding of biology. "It's like our brains are designed to see patterns that shouldn't exist," Greg said, trying to understand the implications. "Not designed," Samantha corrected. "Evolved." Earth's chaotic environment, with its constant natural disasters, climate shifts, and ecological upheavals, created the perfect conditions for minds that could find order in disorder. Meanwhile, Noah Wright and Kate Daniels had reached the United Earth Defense Command headquarters, bringing with them the salvaged components from the crashed Void scout ship. They were rushed into a secure lab where Alan Powell joined them. "The Void ships above us now have already destroyed the token defensive satellites the Confederation left in orbit," Noah reported to Elizabeth when she joined them. "But they haven't attacked the planet itself yet." "They want something," Elizabeth said. "They want us," Kate replied. "Both sides do. The dying Void Scout told us humans have unique neural patterns. The Confederation has been studying us, not helping us." Alan looked up from the alien technology he was examining. "I've managed to translate more of their data storage. The Void and the Confederation have been at war for centuries. They're both desperate for an advantage. And somehow we're that advantage?" Elizabeth asked skeptically. "We can barely leave our own solar system." "It's not about our technology," Samantha said, entering the room with her research findings. "It's about our minds." According to these Altarian studies, human brains can process certain types of information up to 80 times faster than any known species when dealing with chaotic or contradictory data. As if on cue, the building shook. Outside, the sky lit up with energy beams as new ships appeared, Altarian vessels finally responding to the void presence. The space above Earth had become a battlefield. Commander Krell is still waiting for our response, an officer reported. So now we have to choose sides in an alien war, Elizabeth said, her voice heavy. I don't think we have to choose either side, Noah suggested. Both groups have been lying to us, using us. Kate nodded in agreement. The Void says they're liberators, but they attacked without warning. The Confederation claims to be peaceful, but they've been secretly building military installations on our planet. A second, more violent tremor shook the building. Reports flooded in. The battle in orbit was intensifying, and debris was beginning to fall to Earth. In New York, an Altarian defense installation had activated, firing into the sky. Similar reports came from locations around the globe, all places where Kate had tracked unusual activity over the past months. They've been preparing for this, Kate realized. They knew the Void would find us eventually. Elizabeth made a decision. We need to gather everything we know about both sides, and we need to do it fast. Samantha, continue analyzing that Altarian data. Noah, Kate, Alan, keep working on the Void technology. I'm going to speak with both Commander Krell and the Altarian ambassador. Before she could leave, another officer rushed in. Commander, we're intercepting communications between the Altarian fleet and their homeworld. Our new quantum computers are managing to decrypt portions of it. The message that appeared on screen confirmed their worst fears. The Altarian High Command had ordered their fleet to prepare to sanitize the human world if the Void gained any foothold on the surface. Earth was considered an acceptable loss. They're going to sacrifice our entire planet, Elizabeth said, her voice barely above a whisper. At that moment, Samantha made another discovery in the Altarian data. There's something here about Void physiology. Their biomechanical technology has a critical weakness. It's vulnerable to specific radioactive isotopes. What kind of isotopes? Alan asked. The kind we have in abundance, Samantha replied, looking up with a glimmer of hope. They're byproducts of our primitive nuclear technology, waste materials we've been struggling to dispose of for decades. For the first time since the alien ships appeared, Elizabeth felt a slight sense of hope. Humanity was caught between two advanced alien powers who had been at war for centuries. Both sides had lied, manipulated, and now threatened Earth's very existence. But perhaps being primitive had unexpected advantages. The aliens had evaluated Earth based on its technology, its space capabilities, its energy production. They had dismissed humans as barely worth noticing. What they hadn't counted on was humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt, to find opportunity in crisis, and to turn weakness into strength. Get me every nuclear physicist and engineer we can find, Elizabeth ordered. We're not choosing sides in their war. We're creating our own. The next 48 hours changed the course of human history. For the first time, all nations on Earth united under a single command structure. Old enemies shared military secrets, scientific breakthroughs, and resources. There was no time for politics or past grievances. Survival was all that mattered. Commander Elizabeth Foster stood at the center of this unprecedented cooperation, coordinating efforts from the emergency command bunker built deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The facility had been designed to survive nuclear war, but no one had ever imagined it would be used to fight an alien conflict. Status report, Elizabeth called out as she entered the main control room. Screens covered the walls, showing the battle raging in orbit and defense efforts around the globe. The Void has landed ground forces in 7 major cities, General Hayes reported. New York, Beijing, London, Moscow, Tokyo, Sydney, and Cairo. They're establishing what look like command centers. Kate Daniels approached with her tablet. The Confederation isn't doing much better. Their fleet is taking heavy losses. According to our estimates, they've lost nearly 30% of their ships. And the civilian evacuation? Proceeding. As well as can be expected, Kate replied. We've moved most urban populations to the designated shelter areas. Elizabeth nodded grimly. What about Project Aurora? This was the question everyone had been waiting for. Project Aurora, named after the Earth's natural light phenomenon, was humanity's best hope. Using Dr. Samantha Reeves's discovery about void vulnerability to certain nuclear isotopes, Alan Powell had designed a delivery system that could spread a specialized radiation field. We've converted 57 nuclear waste storage facilities into Aurora deployment sites, Alan reported, his eyes red from lack of sleep. The radiation won't harm humans or Earth's environment, but according to our tests on the void materials, it should disrupt their biotechnology. Should? Elizabeth asked. We've only had 2 days to develop and test this, Alan said apologetically. In normal circumstances, this would take years of research. Noah Wright joined them, bringing news from the front lines. He had been coordinating with military units facing void ground troops in New York. Their ground forces are strong but inflexible, he explained. They expect us to fight conventionally, to defend strategic locations, to form battle lines. When our forces use guerrilla tactics, hitting fast and disappearing, the void soldiers struggle to adapt. Elizabeth processed this information. The picture becoming clearer with each report. Both alien forces, despite their advanced technology, had weaknesses that humans could exploit. What about the Altarians, she asked. Any response to our message? After discovering the Confederation's plan to sacrifice Earth, Elizabeth had sent an ultimatum to the Altarian ambassador. Either help humanity defend itself honestly, or be considered an enemy alongside the void. Nothing official, Kate said. But we're picking up unusual movements from their ships. They appear to be positioning themselves around the hyperspace junction. Samantha Reeves burst into the room, her lab coat stained with coffee and her hair disheveled from continuous work. I've found something else in the Altarian data, she announced. Something about human neural patterns. The room fell silent as Samantha connected her device to the main display. It showed a comparison between alien and human brain activity when processing complex problems. The Altarians use linear sequential processing, highly ordered and predictable, she explained. Even the void, despite their biomechanical nature, follow similar patterns, but humans... She highlighted the human neural pathways which lit up in seemingly random areas simultaneously. We make intuitive leaps. We see connections that don't follow logical progressions. What does this mean for the war? Elizabeth asked. It means we can surprise them, Samantha said simply. Both sides rely on prediction algorithms and centralized command structures. They expect enemies to think like they do. Alan suddenly understood. That's why our guerrilla tactics are working. The void can't predict where we'll strike next because we're not following their logic. Elizabeth felt the first real hope since the invasion began. Humanity was outnumbered and outgunned, but perhaps not outsmarted. She made a series of quick decisions. We launch Project Aurora in 6 hours. Noah, coordinate with all ground forces. I want complete unpredictability in our attacks. Different tactics in every city, changing hourly. Kate, use our new quantum computers to analyze both void and Altarian communication patterns. If they have weaknesses in their systems, find them. As the team dispersed to carry out their orders, Elizabeth received an urgent message. The Altarian ambassador was requesting a private meeting. The meeting took place in a small, secure room. The ambassador's crystalline exoskeleton seemed duller than before, suggesting stress or illness. Commander Foster, the alien began. I must convey critical information. The Confederation fleet is preparing to destroy the hyperspace junction. With Earth still in the crossfire, Elizabeth said coldly. Yes. The ambassador did not try to deny it. This junction is one of only 7 known in the galaxy. Its destruction would prevent the void from using it to reach our core worlds. At the cost of millions, possibly billions of human lives. The ambassador's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. The Confederation values all life, but difficult decisions must be made in war. Why tell me this now? Elizabeth demanded. Because I disagree with my government's decision. The ambassador seemed to struggle with the admission. I have observed humans closely. Your species should have a chance to defend itself. Elizabeth studied the alien, trying to determine if this was another manipulation. The junction destabilizers, where are they? There are 5 devices already positioned around your planet. When activated, they will create a cascading energy reaction that will collapse the junction. The effect on Earth will be severe. Tell me how to find them. The Altarian hesitated, then transferred data to Elizabeth's tablet. This contains their locations and deactivation protocols. I am committing treason by providing this. Why risk it? Because in studying humans, I have learned something my people have forgotten. Adaptation requires chaos. The Confederation has been stable for millennia, but we no longer evolve. Perhaps we need species like yours in the galaxy. 6 hours later, Project Aurora launched. From 57 points around the globe, specially modified delivery systems released clouds of radioactive particles into the atmosphere. The particles themselves were harmless to Earth life, calibrated to affect only the unique molecular structure of void biotechnology. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Void ground forces stumbled and fell as their biomechanical components malfunctioned. Their ships in low orbit began drifting, weapon systems failing. Simultaneously, Noah led a coordinated but seemingly random series of attacks against void positions worldwide. No 2 attacks used the same tactics, making it impossible for the enemy to predict where the next strike would come from. Kate's team executed their own plan, a cyber attack against Confederation systems using algorithms specifically designed to exploit their linear thinking patterns. The Altarian ships preparing to activate the junction destabilizers suddenly found their systems compromised. For the first time since the battle began, the aliens were on the defensive, struggling to understand what was happening. They had expected primitive resistance easily overcome by superior technology. Instead, they faced an enemy that turned their own assumptions against them. As Elizabeth watched the battle unfold on the command screens, she recalled something her grandfather, a history professor, once told her. Throughout human history, it's rarely been the most advanced civilizations that survived. It's been the most adaptable ones. Now facing extinction, humanity was proving just how adaptable it could be. The final battle for Earth began as the Confederation fleet returned in greater numbers, determined to destroy the hyperspace junction with Earth still in the crossfire. But they found a changed situation. The void forces were in disarray, their biotechnology crippled by Project Aurora's radiation field, and humanity was no longer cowering in fear. They were fighting back with unexpected effectiveness. Captain Noah Wright led a small fleet of hastily retrofitted vessels directly into the heart of the Confederation formation. These ships had been sitting in hangars around the world, experimental craft, prototype fighters, and even civilian spacecraft modified for combat. None of them should have posed any threat to advanced alien warships. But Noah's pilots weren't flying according to conventional tactics. Remember, no patterns. Noah broadcast to his pilots as they approached the alien fleet. Fly on instinct, not training. The small human vessels darted between the massive Confederation ships, their movements erratic and unpredictable. The alien targeting systems, designed to calculate probable flight paths, struggled to lock onto craft that seemed to change direction at random. Noah himself flew what had once been a suborbital passenger shuttle, now armed with missiles carrying payloads designed by Alan Powell. On the ground, Commander Elizabeth Foster coordinated the global defense from the bunker. Screens showed battles raging in cities around the world. Void ground forces, though weakened by Project Aurora, were still dangerous. But they were facing something they hadn't expected: civilians fighting alongside military units, using improvised weapons and tactics that changed from street to street. "They're adapting too fast," Kate Daniels reported, watching data stream in from around the globe. "Every time the Void or Confederation forces adjust to one tactic, our people switch to something new." Elizabeth nodded. "It's working." But we need to deal with those junction destabilizers before the Confederation activates them. Based on the information from the Altarian ambassador, 5 devices had been secretly planted around the planet. When activated, they would create a reaction that would destroy the hyperspace junction and cause devastating damage to Earth in the process. Strike teams are approaching all 5 locations, General Hayes confirmed. But we've got a problem. At the Siberian site, heavy void presence, our team can't get through. Elizabeth made a quick decision. Divert Noah and 3 fighters to support the Siberian team. We need all 5 devices neutralized. Above Earth, Noah received the new orders and changed course, taking his wingmen toward the Siberian coordinates. As they entered the atmosphere, the targeting computer highlighted the area, a remote mountain region where one of the junction destabilizers was hidden beneath an artificial lake. I see heavy void activity, Noah reported as they approached. They must have figured out what these devices are for. The strike team on the ground was pinned down half a kilometer from the lake. Noah and his pilots swooped low, firing precisely, aimed missiles at the void positions. The alien forces scattered, their normal, disciplined response disrupted by Project Aurora's effects on their systems. The ground team seized the opportunity, rushing toward the lake facility. Noah landed his craft to join them. The final stage would require hands-on work to disarm the device. Meanwhile, in her laboratory beneath the Defense Command headquarters, Dr. Samantha Reeves was making another critical discovery. She had continued analyzing both Altarian and Void technology samples and found something unexpected. The junction itself, she explained to Elizabeth over the secure channel. It's not just a natural phenomenon. It responds to neural activity. The stronger and more complex the neural patterns around it, the more stable it becomes. Are you saying human brains are affecting this junction? Elizabeth asked. Exactly. Our chaotic, adaptive neural patterns are actually stabilizing it. That's why both sides are so interested in humans. We're natural junction stabilizers. The Confederation wants to control us. The Void wants to use us, but neither truly understands what we are. This information changed everything. Elizabeth immediately contacted the Altarian ambassador. You never told us the full truth about the junction, she accused. The ambassador's multiple eyes blinked rapidly. We did not fully understand it ourselves. Our scientists theorized that certain neural patterns could affect junction stability. But we had never encountered a species like yours. If the junction responds to human neural patterns, then destroying it while we're here would be catastrophic, the ambassador finished. More devastating than even my government calculated. It would create a cascading neural feedback effect that could damage consciousness itself across this sector of space. Elizabeth felt cold anger rising within her. Your people were willing to risk this. The void threat was deemed greater than the potential consequences, the ambassador admitted. But I now believe this was a grave error. Across the world, strike teams reached the remaining junction destabilizers. One by one, they were deactivated using the protocols provided by the ambassador. In Siberia, Noah and the ground team finally reached the underwater facility. Following Alan's instructions, they carefully disabled the device. Last destabilizer is neutralized, Noah reported triumphantly. But the battle was far from over. The Confederation fleet commander, seeing the destabilizers deactivated, changed tactics. A massive warship moved into low Earth orbit, directly above the North American continent. Its weapon systems began charging. They're going to try to destroy the junction by brute force, Kate realized, watching the energy readings spike. That ship is preparing to fire directly into the junction's focal point. It was humanity's darkest moment. The Aurora radiation field was weakening as its particles dispersed in the atmosphere. The void forces were beginning to recover, and now the Confederation was preparing to fire a weapon that could tear apart reality itself. Elizabeth made one final, desperate decision. Kate, transmit everything we've learned about junction stability and human neural patterns on all frequencies. Send it to both the Void and Confederation fleets. Everyone deserves to know what's really at stake. Kate hesitated only a moment before complying. Data streamed from Earth's communication arrays. The truth about human neural patterns, junction, stability, and the catastrophic consequences of the Confederation's plan. In orbit, something unexpected happened. Several Confederation ships broke formation, positioning themselves between the massive warship and Earth. At the same time, the remaining Void vessels moved to join them. "What's happening?" General Hayes asked, staring at the tactical display. In confusion. "They're protecting us," Elizabeth realized, "or at least protecting the junction. Not all of them are willing to risk universal catastrophe." The Confederation flagship opened a direct channel to Earth for the first time. The Admiral's face appeared on screen, stern, alien, but with an expression Elizabeth recognized as uncertainty. "Commander Foster," the Admiral addressed her, "your data transmission is troubling. Our scientists are analyzing it now, but the implications are that your plan would cause damage far beyond Earth?" Elizabeth finished. "The junction isn't just a travel point, it's connected to consciousness itself." There was a long pause before the Admiral responded. "We have spent centuries fighting the Void. Difficult decisions have been necessary. Perhaps the problem is that both sides have been fighting for so long that you've forgotten how to see alternatives," Elizabeth suggested. "Humans haven't had that luxury. We've had to adapt to find new solutions to see patterns others miss." Another voice joined the communication, the Void Commander Krell. "The human speaks truth. Our conflict has become fixed, unchanging. We attack, they defend. They attack, we defend." "Exactly," Elizabeth said. "You've both become so predictable to each other that neither can gain advantage. But there may be another way forward." What followed was the most unlikely peace negotiation in galactic history. With Earth as the neutral ground, representatives from both the Confederation and the Void Collective met face to face. Humanity, the supposedly primitive species, served as mediators. Dr. Samantha Reeves presented evidence that the hyperspace junctions throughout the galaxy were actually affected by all sentient minds. But human neural patterns had an unusually strong stabilizing effect. The implications were profound. The more diverse consciousness in the galaxy, the more stable the junctions became. Noah Wright and Kate Daniels demonstrated how humanity's chaotic but adaptable thinking had allowed them to challenge both advanced civilizations despite inferior technology. "Your wars have made you both static," Noah explained. "You've been fighting the same way for so long that you can no longer imagine alternatives." By the time the negotiation ended, the foundations of a new understanding had been established. Earth would remain independent, but would share its unique perspectives with both civilizations. In return, humanity would gain access to advanced technology, not as gifts but as fair exchange for their contributions to junction stability and new ways of thinking. "When we first arrived, we called you primitive," the ambassador said. "We were wrong. Your civilization is young, but your minds are remarkable." Elizabeth smiled. "Maybe the problem was in how you defined primitive. You measured our ships, our energy